Hello and welcome to Leafy Couture's October Flower Club. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make a gorgeous textured autumn wreath. So in your pack you'll get a mossed ring, so this is already prepared just so that it saves you a little bit of hard work and time, and you get to do all the fun bit, which is all the decorating and preparing all the material to go on top. And very importantly as well, in your pack you will have a cup of tea. So make yourself a cup of tea, shut everyone out, shut the door, put on a bit of music if you want, have this time to enjoy and relax and play and have fun creating something beautiful. Okay, so I'll go through what we're going to do first. So obviously you will already have this ready prepared. So the first thing you need to do is attach your reel wire, which will come in your pack as well. So this is quite a sturdy wire, and this attaches all the material to your wreath. And so the first thing to do is just bob it through. Make sure it's going through the wire ring. The base is on a wire ring, and so you'll pop that through one side. I usually thread it through once or twice, a little bit like you're knitting, up and through, just so it doesn't come off when you're binding your material onto the wreath. Pop that back through there. Oop. Find the end, there we go. And then just take the two ends and just give that a little twist so it's nice and secure. And then this end here, bob that back into the moss, just so it doesn't stick into your hand and hurt. So I keep the wire quite taut like that, so it's quite easy to use. Okay, so then we're going to go through our material a little bit and how we're going to prepare that. So I've already made some bundles. So these are just like little units, little bunches of autumnal goodies. There's all sorts of lovely textures. Autumn's just like the best time for texture and colours. So we've got loads of lovely dried material. We've got some wheat, we've got some pampas, we've got some gorgeous lavender here, which obviously smells beautiful. And we've got some fresh material, but long-lasting fresh material like the oak leaves. We've got some grevillea in here, which is this spiky, lovely foliage here, which has got sort of two different tones on the leaf. We've got some gorgeous rosehip berries, which give that flash of colour, and a few other lots of little bits. Got some limonium. And the oak leaves as well. I can't remember whether I just said that, but the oak leaves are lovely. They start off quite green but go a little bit browner as they dry, so it's kind of like lovely, long lasting, but it changes the texture and the colour as the time goes on. We've also got some of the viburnum berries as well, which are beautiful, one of my favourites this time of year. Okay, so I'll show you how to make the little units first. So we're just making just a little bunch. So we just need to chop some of our material. I've generally, in each little unit, I've gone pretty similar in each one, but it doesn't have to be too uniform. The idea is that it's very textured, very loose, very natural. So each one can just have, a little bit of variation in the material. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, as long as the overall appearance, you have a distribution of the textures and the colours and the material that you've got. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of the pampas grass and just start making like a little mini bunch here. Some of the wheat and the other dried material. Just remember that when you're making this at home, you do need to protect your surface because it is a bit of a messy job, like any kind of flower arrangement. Make sure you're not doing it on a delicate surface. Either cover it with a tablecloth or do something that you're not too worried about damaging. And yeah, make sure that if you're worried about your flooring, put something underneath to protect that, because obviously it is a little bit messy. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of the lavender in here as well, because the lavender smells gorgeous. So this could be hung inside if you wanted, but also outside on your door. If it's a little bit more protected, that does help with keeping your material not getting damaged too much by the weather. So if you do have a porch, that is great, but I wouldn't worry too much. If not, you know, your wreath will still look beautiful on any door. Okay, so we just made a little bundle there, little bunch. Trim off the ends so you haven't got too much of the stems showing. Normal scissors are okay. If you've got floristry scissors, that's great. Some of the stems are a little bit thicker, so you may find you need some secateurs, but there shouldn't be anything too woody, so you shouldn't need anything too robust. Just some decent scissors or some secateurs are absolutely fine as well. So I've just made a little hairpin shape onto my, wound that round to just secure that in. So we'll provide the wires, so they'll be in your box as well, and it's just sort of a medium strength wire, nothing too thick and nothing too flimsy, so that it is well secure. Okay, so we just made a little bunch there. So now once you've made a few, you want to prepare quite a few in advance with all your different lovely materials, then you can start constructing your wreath. So I've already attached my wire, my real wire there. Just move some of the material out of the way so you can see. Here we go. So the first thing to do is just start layering your material, your little bundles onto your base, onto your moss ring. So I usually keep this quite short so it's easy to manoeuvre, and then just go round your little unit like that. And that's quite secure. Go around at least 2 or 3 times just to make sure it's all secure and it's not going to fall out. And you need to do it quite tight so it doesn't fall out. It's, you know, it's can be moved, especially if it is going on a door outside with the weather elements. Yeah, okay. And then you just keep layering on and moving your wire, real wire along as you go. Just think about your shape. You want to layer over so you don't see any of your mechanics from the bundle before, so you're not seeing the wire. And it's nice to have this sort of lovely flowing texture coming out, but it does need to go, obviously it is a circular design, so just keep to the circle, don't go completely outward, vertical like that, or else you'll kind of lose that shape. Okay. I have held some material back as well, some other material like this gorgeous dried hydrangea, and some of the phasalis here, this gorgeous bright orange Chinese lantern is sort of commonly known as, because we'll add them on at the end to give a bit more impact. And it's always great to hold some of your material back, especially the bulky stuff, because that can also help disguise any kind of bits that have been missed, any kind of, you know, naked areas that need a bit more filling in, and any of the mechanics that are still showing can be covered up at the end again by this sort of extra material. And especially the lovely hydrangea is great for that, because it's nice and thick and covers really well. Okay, so you just layer that up and keep going round. Okay, so you can see how the shape is forming now. So you've got this lovely flow of material going round. You've got like all the lovely textures sort of coming out, so it gives that loose textured feel for the autumn. Some of the material will last, you know, forever really. You know, the dried lavender will last forever, and even this sort of fresher material is all very long lasting. The berries will dry a little bit, they may change their sort of texture and form as they dry, but they will last ages, and that's great. You know, that's the great thing about the autumn and the winter. We have all this gorgeous material that just lasts for so long. Okay. So if you've done your bundles slightly different, and you haven't used exactly the same format in every one, just make sure that you're distributing evenly throughout, so you've got plenty of the different colours and the textures, so they're not all in one area, so you haven't got all your lavender literally just in one place. You've got it dotted throughout, a bit like how I've done here. And again, you can, if you've got some of your extra material, like I've got a bit of lavender left, if you feel like it needs that extra bit, you know, if it's a bit heavy in one side of one type of material, you can go in with these little extra bits and add it at the end. Okay. Let's go with this one because it's got some nice berries on. So we've probably maybe done one too many bunches, but that's always good. It's always good to do a little bit too many than too less, because it's amazing how much material you do use. But estimated that quite well. Okay, this is a lovely one. That greville's come out a little bit, so we'll just tuck that back in and that'll wire in nicely. Okay, so the end piece is a little bit harder because you just need to fold back the sort of start piece just so you're wiring underneath as opposed to on top of your material. So you might just need to untuck some of the material there so that you don't trap it in. Okay, so just make sure that's gone through a couple of times so it's nice and tight, so you're not going to have any material falling out. And then trim the end of your wire, your real wire there. And again, just the same process as the beginning. Tuck that through the frame and through the moss till it comes through the other side. And do that once or twice just so it's nice and secure and it's not going to fall out. And then make sure it's tucked back into your frame. Here we go. So now we can add in some of the extra material, and this is where you can sort of be a bit more personal and you can add as much or as little as you want, make it really full and lush, or if you just want to add a few touches, you can do that. So this is where you get to be a bit more creative and finish off the design in the way that you want to. So I've got some lovely hydrangea. These are dried, so hydrangeas are great because obviously in the summer you get all the lovely fresh flowers, and then as they change in the autumn, you get different colours again, and then you can dry them, cut them. You know, if you've got them in your garden, it's a brilliant thing to do. Cut them and dry them through the winter. And these are from, you know, these have dried beautifully, still got plenty of colour on them, and they'll just last forever. So the colour fades a little bit sometimes, but even as it does, you know, it still looks beautiful. And you can spray them as well. You know, spray them, especially around Christmas, look beautiful sprayed with touches of gold or silver. Okay, so I'm going to just make some little units again, and it just depends on how you know, how abundant you want it to be. You can do them some nice big clumps, or you can do some smaller pieces. So you can just, you know, use your discretion and what you want to do and how you want the finished product to look. So we're going to take some stud wires, so these will be in your pack as well, and do a hairpin again, so that shape, and just place it on your stem of the flower that you're using, and then take the longer wire and wire it round the stem and catching in the other end of the wire there as well. Okay, we'll just trim that a bit, and so you can just very easily and simply just thread that through through the base of the wreath into the moss and hairpin it sort of back in, just so it doesn't, you don't want any loose sharp wires on the back of your design, because obviously if you're putting it on a wall or on the door, you don't want it to scratch, and also with the, you know, the sharp, so they hurt, so just be careful. Okay, so you can see there I did a bit of hydrangea, and it's great if you've got any gaps where you can see either, you know, is sort of a bit naked, or you can see some of your mechanics. It's great to add in these extra touches just to disguise them. So you can either bundle 2 or 3 little bits together, or you can just break off one clump and add that in. Okay, so we'll probably just add maybe 3. Just make sure that it looks balanced. You can group things together or you can distribute it evenly throughout, just whatever design you want to go with. Everybody, and it's quite nice because this is where you can make them look a little bit different to each other. You don't have to everyone do the same. Yeah. And just add one more of those. Just trim down the wire a bit. Some of them are a little bit long, so it's just a bit easier to work with if you just trim them down a little bit. Sometimes you get a little bit of a stubborn bit if you just need to find a little bit of a gap where there isn't a thick stem in the way of poking through the base. And just again, tuck that back on itself so you haven't got any sharp edges. Okay, so I've got a bit of extra texture there. Makes it look a bit fuller, another sort of colourway. So you could add more of that in if you wanted. I'm going to add some of these teasels in. These are a bit spiky, so do be careful. They're not the nicest of things to handle, so just be a bit gentle. If you hold them carefully and just don't sort of grab hold tight, just be aware that they are a little bit spiky, these ones. So again, you can either group them together, add 2 or 3 as a little bunch like that if you want to have a bit more impact, or you can do them individually, just depending on what you want to do. I'm going to add a couple together. Again, like I say, they are spiky, so just be careful. There we go. They have little thorns in, they're a bit nasty if you're not careful. If you want, when you're using anything like that, you know, bob on some gardening gloves and that will protect your hands. There we go. Got a little one in me there. Okay. So it's quite nice to do a couple together because you just get a little bit more impact rather than just doing individual ones. And just make sure any wires are disguised. Just pull a bit of your foliage over it if there's some wire showing. There we go. So again, these are great, you know, dried, they'll just last forever. That, you know, there's such a lovely like texture. Looks so autumnal with this design. And we'll just add a couple more there, just so it balances out the colour and the shape. Yeah, I definitely recommend you bob some gardening gloves on, just to make sure you don't get some nasty spikes in your hands with those, because they're a little bit evil. There we go. Okay, so you can see how that's distributed evenly and just adds like extra texture, another colourway. So it's already like super full, super lush. Just to finish the design, we do have some lovely chilies just to add a sort of a pop of colour. Do be really careful when you're using the chilies because obviously they are chilies, real chilies, and so if you get them on your hands and then rub your eyes, you'll know about it. So just be really careful. Wash your hands afterwards and don't be rubbing your eyes when you've used them. But quite nice because it just gives sort of a vibrant edge to the design. And again, you could do them, you know, a bigger clump if you wanted, a bigger unit, just for a bit more impact. So I'm just going to add another chili in, just for another pop of colour. And like I say, you can make this completely personal. You can add as much or as little as you want. You could do it more grouped. You could do it a bit more asymmetric, so you have more of a group on one side and then leave one side quite plain. It's totally up to you. It's lovely to see all the different variations on the design. And then I'm going to stop with the rest of those bits there, and I'm just going to add a bit of the physalis now, just because these are just they just shout autumn to me, and they're commonly known as the Chinese lanterns, and they just look beautiful at this time of year because you just got that rich orange, so vibrant. So there's a few different ways you could do this. You could add them in sort of individually and have little units again, little bunches, and you could distribute throughout the whole design. You could just have it on one side, like a big loop around like that. You could do it lots of different ways. You could add as much or as little as you want. So I'm going to cut them down a little bit just so it's not too, it doesn't overshadow the rest of the design. And I'm just going to do a couple of sort of long pieces just so we get that lovely flow around either side of the design there. So the easiest way to do it again is to do a hairpin on one side of your stem. Okay, and then we're just going to thread this through. I'm going to try and do it a little bit more towards the outside of the design, just because I really like to see it sort of almost like it's just flowing round the edge of the wreath. So just find a nice little area where it's easy to place in through, again through the moss ring, and you might just need to give it a little bit of a wiggle, move your little lanterns where you want them, and again make sure you secure it through the back through the ring, back into the moss so you haven't got any loose wires. And if it's quite long and obviously it's sort of sticking out a bit too much there, and it just sort of spoils the shape of the wreath, we're just going to tuck it back in here on this side. So again, you could either just hairpin this in, like sort of do that shape if it's quite close to design, and push through, or again you could do the same as what I was doing where you actually wrap it around the edge, the end of the stem. So I think we can just manage to hairpin this in. So you just need to make sure that you're going through the ring again, through the moss. Yep, and you can see how that just sort of hooks in and just catches the end of your stem there. And then it's come through the other side of my ring, and I'm just going to give it a little twist there because I've come through with two equal sort of ends, and then tuck that back in again like we've done with all the other wires, so it's nice and secure. Yeah, okay, so you can see how it's sort of tucked in, but then if we just twiddle a little bit some of our other material just so it doesn't look like anything sort of squished down, and it just looks like it's sort of weaved through the design a bit. And I'm just going to do one other piece this side just to balance that colour out. But like I say, you can be completely personal. You could put loads in. I'm taking off the foliage of these just because as they dry, the foliage goes a little bit yellow, and it's not as pretty. It doesn't look as fresh. But the actual lanterns just stay beautiful and vibrant. But yeah, just take off the foliage. Otherwise it kind of goes a little bit yellow and isn't as lovely. Okay, again, so just find a nice little gap where you want it to be. And come a little bit further this way, I think. Into the moss ring. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to find a space. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of a fiddle around just to find a gap, especially once your wreath is quite full towards the end of, finishing off. There we go. So it's come through the moss ring and then back through. I'm just going to move some of my other material again like I did before, just so it doesn't all feel squished. There we go. And so I want to tuck it back in at this point here. If you find I might just use a slightly thicker wire on this one just because it feels a little bit rigid and sometimes you need that extra control. So you'll have a few different wires in the pack just so you can use, you can use different gauges depending on the stems that you're using in your design. This one's a little bit stubborn. Can't find a... There we go. Give that a little twist, just so it's nice and secure, and then hook it back through. There we go. So it just looks like it's weaved through, and it's more towards the outside edge, just so you get that pop of colour. So I'm going to leave it there, because I just think that's super full at the moment. Loads of lovely textures, loads of different autumnal colours. Yeah, And like I say, you could be completely personal, add as much or as little as you want, change the design. And when you have done yours, it's great to see them on social media, on Instagram or on Facebook, because it's just so lovely to see everybody else's take on it and see how creative everyone is. Okay, so just then literally the finishing thing then is just depending on where you're going to place your wreath. You could have it in the centre of a table, you could have candles in it, that always looks gorgeous for an autumnal dinner. It looks beautiful, but if you are going to hang it up, you can use some ribbon to hang your design either on your outside door or on a wall or an internal door. So you just need to make a loop, and also again I'm just going to change scissors. Sometimes the ones that I have don't cut the ribbon so well. Depends on how where you're hanging it, it depends on how much ribbon you need. So you might just need to adjust that slightly depending on your door and where you're going to hang it. Some people need to hang it right over the door and hook it on the inside. Some people have got somewhere where they can attach it quite easily. But so you just need to make a loop, tie that off. Ribbon is much more sturdy than string. So if you've got anything, these are quite light though, especially because of the dried material. But it is better to use a ribbon really, just it holds a lot better. String can often snap, so if it is, and especially when it's something heavy, always go for ribbon because it's a lot more sturdy and less likely to snap. Okay, and then you just need to sort of find whether, if you want to have a look at your design, see where you feel like if there's a natural sort of top or a bottom. I feel like that's sort of more likely to be the bottom, but you just, you can just choose wherever it feels right for you. And then you need to tuck one end through, just so it loops into through your ring. I usually just try and move the material out of the way a little bit so it goes quite close to the ring, and then tuck it all in, and then rejig your material a little bit so it's disguised, so you don't see anything too not pretty. Okay, so there's the finished design, so you can go and hang that on your wall or on your door, and just enjoy doing it. And thank you so much for being part of the October Flower Club.